My husband humiliated me in front of his entire family. What my daughter said next made him pale. The room fell silent the moment my husband laughed. It wasn't the soft, endearing laugh I once fell in love with, it was sharp, cruel, and meant to cut me down. We were seated around a long dining table, surrounded by his parents, his siblings, their spouses, and even distant cousins who had come into town. Plates of food were laid out in abundance, but all I could taste was the bitterness of shame. My husband, Daniel, had just made a joke about me that wasn't funny at all. He told his family that he had to marry down because someone needed to raise the kids while he made all the money. Everyone chuckled uncomfortably, but his eyes stayed locked on me, daring me to say something. I felt my cheeks flush as if the walls were closing in on me. For years, I had stood by his side, sacrificed my career, my ambitions, my freedom, just so I could support his. When our daughter, Emma, was born, I willingly chose to pause my dreams to make sure she had a stable home and a present parent. And yet, here I was, being reduced to nothing but a punchline at his family dinner. I swallowed hard and forced a smile, the same way I had done countless times before when Daniel's words hurt me. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, the humiliation would pass. But this time, something different happened. My daughter, our little 10-year-old, stood up from her chair. Her small hands were clenched into fists, and her eyes, usually so gentle, blazed with fire. "Daddy," she said firmly, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "Don't talk about mommy like that. She's the smartest and strongest person I know. Without her, you wouldn't even have a family to brag about." The air shifted instantly. Everyone froze. The smirks faded. Forks stopped clinking against plates. And Daniel, his face went pale, drained of all color, as if those words had reached somewhere deep inside him where no one else had dared to go. I stared at Emma, my heart pounding in my chest. She was shaking slightly, but she stood her ground, refusing to look away from her father. In that moment, I realized that my silence had not only been hurting me, it had been teaching my daughter that disrespect was something she should accept. But Emma, bold and fearless, reminded me of a truth I had long buried: I deserved more. Daniel tried to laugh it off, muttering something about her being a child who didn't understand. But no one laughed with him. Even his mother shot him a look of disapproval. The room that once echoed with his authority now felt strangely against him. I saw him squirm, shifting in his seat, desperate to change the subject. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and not by me, but by the daughter he thought would always see him as the hero. That night, as we drove home, Daniel remained unusually quiet. I sat beside Emma in the backseat, holding her hand. She looked up at me and whispered, "Mommy, don't let him make you feel small. You're everything to me." Tears blurred my vision, but I squeezed her hand back, silently promising her that I would never let her down again. In the days that followed, something in me shifted. I stopped shrinking myself. I stopped accepting the casual insults masked as jokes. I started speaking up, not with anger, but with strength. And surprisingly, every time I did, Daniel flinched. It was as though Emma's words had awakened something in him, a mirror he could no longer ignore. For weeks, he tried to dismiss what had happened. But eventually, he sat me down and asked, "Do you really think I've been that cruel?" His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I told him the truth. I told him how every public jab, every belittling comment, every sarcastic remark had chipped away at me. I told him that love without respect wasn't love at all. I told him that if he truly wanted this family to last, he needed to change, not just for me, but for the little girl who had the courage to call him out when I couldn't. It wasn't an easy road. Change never is. There were arguments, moments of doubt, and even times I thought about walking away. But Daniel, to my surprise, began to listen. He started therapy, learned to manage his ego, and slowly, painfully slowly, began to rebuild the respect he had shattered. The true healing didn't come from apologies alone, though. It came from action. He started thanking me for things he had long taken for granted: the meals, the home, the late-night comfort when he was stressed. He started defending me in front of his family instead of mocking me. Most importantly, he began to show Emma that her words had not fallen on deaf ears. Years later, I still remember that night at the dinner table vividly. I remember the sting of humiliation, the silence of a room full of people, and the way my daughter's voice rose to protect me. What Daniel thought would be another moment of control became the turning point of our marriage. Today, when I look at Emma, I don't just see my daughter, I see the little warrior who taught me to stand tall, who reminded me of my worth when I had forgotten it. And when I look at Daniel, I see a man who nearly lost everything because of pride, but who found redemption through humility. So if you ever find yourself belittled, mocked, or humiliated by someone who claims to love you, remember this: silence only fuels their power. But courage, whether it's your own or borrowed from the voice of someone who loves you, can change everything. Because sometimes, it only takes one brave voice to turn the tables. And that night, my daughter was